Let us begin with a simple, powerful truth. There is a load in your life, and it must be named before you can truly move forward. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 1, the writer urges, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely." The choice of words here is intentional. A weight is not always a dramatic crisis. Sometimes it is subtle, a quiet heaviness in the background, so familiar you hardly notice it anymore. But it is there, slowing you down, keeping your attention fixed on the wrong things. The instruction is not abstract, it is profoundly practical. Lay it aside. So what does it mean to name the weight? It means you stop hiding from what is truly affecting your spirit. You identify the very thing you keep excusing, postponing, or minimizing. A weight could be a habit that pulls your mind away from God, the endless scrolling late at night, the consumption of distressing news, the need to fill every quiet moment with distraction. It might be a resentment you rehearse in your mind, or a fear you attempt to manage through control. It could be a pattern of small dishonesties at work, or a private compromise you know does not align with God's heart for you. A telling question to ask is this: what in my life feels like it has its own momentum? You know the feeling, those behaviors that start small but soon take over. Perhaps it is an anger that flares too quickly, an anxiety that keeps you circling in the land of what if, or a relationship where you constantly aim to please others, only to lose yourself in the process. We may not always call these things sin in our daily conversations, but the writer of Hebrews uses a category that includes both: every weight and sin which clings so closely. Some weights are pressures and behaviors, others are sins, actions, attitudes, or the worship of something other than God, that grip you like a stubborn vine. And here is a crucial detail. The text does not say, "Try really hard to pretend you don't have a weight." It says to lay it aside. This implies movement. It requires intention. It is like preparing for a race. If you are about to sprint, you do not simply psych yourself up while wearing a backpack full of bricks. You remove it. You make a conscious choice to lighten your load. Naming the weight also transforms how you pray. Vague pleas like, "God help me," or "God take away my problems," give way to something more specific, more honest. You might find yourself praying, "God, I recognize that bitterness has become my default response. I don't want it anymore. Teach me how to forgive." Or, "Father, I see now that I use busyness as an excuse to avoid you. I want to be with you instead." This kind of specificity does not replace faith. It strengthens it, because it shows you are no longer negotiating with the truth. Then, the passage in Hebrews points to the next step. "And let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith." Turning toward God is not just an emotional shift, it is a change of direction. To look to Jesus means your focus locks in. You stop running on instinct and start running with purpose. Sometimes, the most difficult part of a conversation is not what is said, but the feeling that the other person is not truly present. You can ask a question and receive an answer that is technically correct, but emotionally distant. The words may be polite, even thoughtful, yet it feels like speaking to a wall. In these moments, the goal is not to argue about the answer. It is to reconnect, to ask for presence, for clarity, for a shared space in the conversation itself. When answers feel distant, we can feel confused, rejected, or as if we are prying information from someone rather than sharing an experience. The key is to separate the need for information from the need for connection. Instead of pushing harder for details, you can gently invite a different kind of response. You might say, "I feel like I'm missing what this was really like for you. Can you tell me more about your experience?" Or, "I hear your words, but I feel a distance between us. Can we try again?" Notice what this approach does. It does not accuse. It does not label the other person as cold. It simply describes your own perception and asks for a more present, engaged answer. This helps lower defenses because you are speaking from your experience, not passing judgment on their character. Using I statements can translate your emotional reading of the situation into a clear, gentle request. For instance, when I hear short answers, I start to worry that something is wrong. Could you share a bit more about how you're feeling? This matters because it gives the other person a roadmap. What you need is not just a longer answer, it is a more connected one. This search for connection in our human relationships mirrors a deeper spiritual truth. In our prayers, we can also feel a distance. We ask for guidance, and the silence that follows can feel vast and empty. We ask for comfort, but the trial continues. It is in these moments that our prayer can shift. Instead of only asking for answers, we can begin to ask for His presence. God, I don't understand this, but I ask you to be with me in it. Let me feel your closeness, even if I cannot see the path ahead. This prayer acknowledges that connection with God is itself the answer we seek most deeply. And this leads us to a difficult truth. Not everything can be fixed, at least not on our timeline, not with our own effort, and not through sheer force of will. When we hold tightly to control, we are sending a constant signal to our nervous system. Something is dangerously wrong, and I must fix it now. This mindset keeps us in a state of high alert, making it harder to think clearly, and missing what this was really like for you. Can you tell me more about your experience? Or, I hear your words, but I feel a distance between us. Can we try again? Notice what this approach does. It does not accuse. It does not label the other person as cold. It simply describes your own perception and asks for a more present, engaged answer. This helps lower defenses because you are speaking from your experience, not passing judgment on their character. Using I statements can translate your emotional reading of the situation into a clear, gentle request. For instance, when I hear short answers, I start to worry that something is wrong. Could you share a bit more about how you're feeling? This matters because it gives the other person a roadmap. What you need is not just a longer answer, it is a more connected one. This search for connection in our human relationships mirrors a deeper spiritual truth. In our prayers, we can also feel a distance. We ask for guidance, and the silence that follows can feel vast and empty. We ask for comfort, but the trial continues. It is in these moments that our prayer can shift. Instead of only asking for answers, we can begin to ask for His presence. God, I don't understand this, but I ask you to be with me in it. Let me feel your closeness, even if I cannot see the path ahead. This prayer acknowledges that connection with God is itself the answer we seek most deeply. And this leads us to a difficult truth. Not everything can be fixed. At least not on our timeline, not with our own effort, and not through sheer force of will. When we hold tightly to control, we are sending a constant signal to our nervous system. Something is dangerously wrong, and I must fix it now. This mindset keeps us in a state of high alert, making it harder to think clearly, Surrendering control is not about giving up. It is about choosing to carry only what is truly yours to handle. It helps to distinguish between control and influence. Control means you can dictate the outcome directly. Influence means you can affect the situation with your choices, your attitude, your communication, your boundaries, your next step. So much of our pain comes from confusing the two, like trying to steer a ship by pulling harder on the anchor. You cannot command the ocean, but you can choose to set your sails. When you find yourself stuck on a situation you cannot change, you can introduce a simple internal script. This is out of my control. I can respond, but I cannot control. This single shift moves you from fighting reality to meeting it. Then, you can ask two questions. First, what is within my power right now? This could be your next action, your environment, your words, or your decision to simply pause and breathe. And second, what is the cost of my attempt to maintain control? Often, what feels like problem solving is actually just rumination, replaying the same conversation, Googling the same worry, planning for the same worst-case scenario. This does not solve the problem. It only feeds the stress. To release what cannot be fixed is to stop the mental tug-of-war over outcomes you do not own. It is an act of profound faith, an acceptance that peace is found not in managing every detail, but in trusting the one who holds all things together. When we carry unresolved wounds, fear and guilt can begin to drive our days. They often show up not as a loud alarm, but as quiet background noise. They can look like procrastination, over-explaining, or a paralyzing feeling in difficult conversations. They can manifest as a relentless need to earn love by being perfect. Fear, at its core, is an echo of our instinct to survive. Your brain is designed to protect you, and when it senses a threat, whether physical or emotional, it can become hyper-vigilant. You might become more sensitive to someone's tone of voice, quicker to assume criticism, or slower to trust your own judgment. Your nervous system can get stuck in the on position, leaving you feeling restless, tense, or exhausted, even when your current situation is perfectly safe. Fear becomes a pattern, not a prediction. It can convince you that danger is always just around the corner, even when there is no evidence for it. Then, there is guilt. Healthy guilt says, I did something wrong, and I need to make it right. It can motivate us to apologize, to change our behavior, to take responsibility. But guilt becomes a crushing weight when it turns into a self-punishment that never ends. You might find yourself revisiting the same mistake, asking what you should have said or done differently. The more you replay it, the more your brain reinforces the loop of guilt. A helpful way to recognize this trap is to ask, am I focusing on repair, or am I just reliving the pain? Repair moves forward. Reliving moves in circles. When fear and guilt repeatedly interrupt our sense of safety, our hope can become frayed at the edges. Frayed hope looks like starting to believe again, and then pulling back at the last second. It looks like believing in good outcomes, but only with a hidden condition. I'll be okay, as long as nothing else goes wrong. It is a fragile trust, easily broken. Once you have begun to lay aside these weights, the next challenge is to build a steady strength. This is not about dramatic bursts of effort, but about a reliable foundation. Steady strength is built by repeating the basics, balanced with smart recovery. Progress should feel challenging, but it should not feel like you are constantly dragging yourself forward. Steady strength feels like momentum. On the mental side, consistency is not just about willpower. It is about creating an environment with intentional cues. Our brains love predictable patterns because they reduce the fatigue of making decisions. You can attach a new, healthy habit to something you already do. For example, after I have my morning coffee, I will spend 10 minutes in prayer and reflection. Or, after I brush my teeth at night, I will do my stretching routine. These small, repeatable progressions are how you earn progress instead of trying to force it. And now, we come to the heart of it all. How do you face tomorrow with confidence when you cannot see what is coming? How do you keep your heart from being worn down by fear, uncertainty, or the pressure to figure everything out today? Scripture does not just tell us to survive the present. It shows us how to bless tomorrow by resting in God's unfailing love. That phrase, unfailing love, is a promise. It means God's commitment to you does not break under stress. It does not disappear when life gets hard. It does not weaken when you are tired, distracted, or struggling. It is a foundation that remains firm even when the storms of life change their shape and intensity. Think about what happens when you try to carry tomorrow on your own shoulders. You begin to budget your worries. You replay conversations you cannot redo. You imagine worst-case scenarios, preparing to be hurt before anything has even happened. This kind of living feels productive, but it steals your peace. You might call it being prepared, but what you are really doing is borrowing anxiety from the future and paying for it with your energy today. Resting in unfailing love is different. It is not denial. It does not pretend that problems will not come. Instead, it gives you a new center of gravity. When you know that God's love for you will not fail, your mind can stop screaming for control long enough to breathe. You are still responsible. You make plans. You work. You learn. You take wise steps. But you do it from a place of trust, not from a place of panic. To bless tomorrow means you approach the future with hope and intention, rather than with dread. It means you speak life over what is ahead. It means you treat tomorrow as a space that God can guide, even if you cannot predict it. In practice, this might look like starting each day with a prayer that is less about demanding outcomes and more about asking for God's presence, wisdom, and peace. A prayer of blessing for tomorrow might sound like this: Lord, I do not know what this day holds, but I know that you hold me. Help me to take the next right step. Give me patience where I am tempted to rush. Let my words be kind and my work be honest. And if anything unexpected comes, help me to respond not with fear, but with a quiet courage that is rooted in you. This is the prayer for comfort in difficult times. It is a journey that begins with naming the weight, moves through the honest plea for presence, learns to surrender control, and finds a steady strength. And it all rests upon this one glorious truth: His love is unfailing. And because of that, you can rest tonight, and you can bless tomorrow.